Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, our webinar about generations in the workplace. So as you're aware, we're at about 5 different generations working side by side, but it's essential that we not only just acknowledge the differences, but also harness them in a way that creates strength, inclusivity and mutual understanding. Now, every generation brings something different to the table. Boomers, they offer experience, loyalty. Gen X, which is where I sit, we bring independence and pragmatism. Is that the right word? Pragmatism, yeah. So millennials, they push for purpose and flexibility, and Gen Z are digitally native and values social equity. So when we build teams with a mix of these perspectives, we benefit from innovation, resilience and balance. But of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are communication gaps, clash of work styles, even assumptions about someone's ability based purely on age. So that's why it's important that we look at both the benefits and the barriers so we can build a more inclusive workplace for all ages. Can I just apologise if you can hear some strange noises in here? My dog has suddenly decided that he wants to be in the office with me. So I do apologise if you can hear him. So today our guest speaker is Donna Bishon from RHP. She is a talent attraction advisor, and she is here to offer some unique and insightful information and help and advice, really, in terms of how employers can enhance the generation diversity gap that we have in the workplace. So I'm going to kick off with a few questions. So welcome, Donna, and thank you so much for your time this morning. As the working generation gets older, what should employers do to support older people in the workplace?
First of all, good morning, everybody. I hope that I'm going to be able to give you a little bit of insight into these questions and these things. I think it's very important that employers start to also look not at just the older generation who are here now until, well, for me, 67. So technically, had it been I'd been born that little bit earlier, I'd have retired now, you know, freeing up a job for someone else from the younger generation. So I think it's really important that what employers do is support the older people in the older generation who are still working, but also be looking at what can be done for those people coming up behind. So harness the experience that you have from the older people, but also help older people to learn. Because one of the things that's a problem is so many things. I wouldn't say it's a problem, but there's so many things going on, such as, you know, AI and the way in which things are evolving in recruitment and in everything that we do in the workplace. And a lot of older people are reluctant to learn and to move on, whereas the younger generation, that's what they were brought up with and that's what they've been learning, and to them that is the future of the workplace. So very often you get that clash where we think we know best, but the younger ones also know best. So it's how do we get them to work together? And I think it's really important that as an older person, what I try to do, I try to learn. And never, well, I don't think I do anyway. I don't know if the others will say that, but I don't try to say, oh, it was better in our day, or we used to do it that way, or whatever. I don't necessarily think that you change for the sake of change. I think that the way you change has to be for a good reason, that we're moving on and we have to move on to the next steps. And I think that the younger generation should also be listening to the older ones and just getting that bit of experience and understanding from what we bring to the workplace from having been in it for a long time. Employers for the older generation, I just think they just need to realise that as you get older, you may slow down a bit. And I'm talking about slowing down in your mind. You don't maybe think as quickly, but we are, I'd say, more accurate in what we do. We're much more about accuracy, necessary about speed. I think that the way in which we write and the way in which we spell and the way in which we check things are very different to the younger generation, where everything is very quick.
Yes,
and that's
I
not
agree.
really, that's not generalizing, that's just what I've seen for myself as well, in which way I'm having to look and checking. No one really checks spelling or things as much as they used to, because a lot of us all use Microsoft, I imagine, which is sometimes very Americanized. So we don't check the spelling. There's Z's where there should be S's and things like that. So I think
in Word, I think they've got that at the bottom, haven't
the
they,
option
where
to
you can change
yeah.
the language.
Yeah,
so
and sometimes it just defaults constantly. So you have to then
America,
look
yeah.
at spelling it yourself and things like that. So I think for employers, just really and truly look at the people that you've got, your people. What's going to happen when those older people, myself, I'm a baby boomer, so I'm just heading towards, slowing down a bit more now. And I've got those coming up behind me. And mostly the millennials, I suppose, are the next real group. So you're looking at the 40s and so on, are the ones that are going to be coming in to take over from us. And then they need to then make sure things are set in place for the next generation coming up after them. Because eventually everyone becomes a baby boomer in the sense of they're the ones at the top of the chain when it comes to working.
No, I totally agree. That's a really good insight. And I do think you're right in saying that, the young generations can potentially learn from the older generations. But I think that vice versa as well.
Yeah.
Older generations can learn a lot from the
yeah.
younger generations. From what my understanding is, or from my experience, is that the workplace has changed drastically from where it was back in the 80s, 70s, even the 90s and the early noughties. So, and I do think there's a lot to be said for the younger generations who are, they had this movement where is a shift in thinking on how, work and work-life balance really is important, because, we as the older generations just didn't have that concept at all. We worked like Trojans, and then weekends were catching up and socializing and doing those things. Whereas I think the younger generations have definitely got it right in terms of a work-life balance. So I think that's really good insight. Thank you, Donna.
I also feel that, I know we all went through the pandemic and it was awful, but it also taught us a lot. It taught us that it wasn't necessary for us to commute into an office every single day to work. And before the pandemic, it was very difficult to try and get a day to work at home. But I think that we've learned that we can work from home. Production from people working from home is a lot higher because you cut out that whole commuting thing in the morning. And also for yourself, for your well-being, is that when you finish work at 5, you're at home. You're not having to then commute for another hour, an hour and a half before you're home. And then you're at home, and that's your evening is gone. You feel like you come in, you have your food, you go in the bath or the shower, and you're in bed, and it's this circle again. So I think that although the pandemic was very difficult for us all, it also taught us that we can work in a different way. And I think employers should look at that different way in which we work and embrace it, rather than try and force some people. I know some organizations are trying to push people back into the workplace. But I think it's a good balance. Going in the office once a week or twice a week is great, because it's good for you to socialize with other people as well. Although I do find when I go in, I get very little done, because it is more about catching up with people all the time. So I like to work from home and really work and get my work done. And it's just much better for me. That's for me personally. I know there's people that still like to go in the office, but to have those options now is so much better than it used to be.
No, I agree. I personally work from home full time, and I really enjoy that. I think the only snag with working from home is you don't have that office banter, should we say. We don't have the conversations with the people, but then there's nothing stopping us from jumping onto a quick Teams call with team members, etc., and building those rapports. But then there's also the other side of the thing where you know, if you're in your own little bubble permanently,
Mhm.
then you're not sort of like strengthening up your immune system even, and that's quite important too, because you're not mixing with other people all the time. So then you're like it was in the pandemic, you know, when people were coming down with COVID a lot worse the second time round, and it was stated because everybody's in their own little bubble, everybody's at home working, so therefore they're not building up a tolerance to certain illnesses. So there is a lot to be said for remote working, hybrid working, and full-time office working. I mean, 100%. Back in the day, there was no such thing. I used to think, oh wow, can we just at least have a couple of days working from home?
That's right.
But you know, even a 7-mile journey for me would take 45 minutes in rush hour, and you would just think, oh my word, why is this taking so long? So you know, it does, you know, working from home, you can get more done because you're not restricted to those timescales in terms of having to fight with the traffic, leave the home earlier. Right. You get a better work-life balance. So that's really some really good points there. Thank you for that, Donna. So what would you suggest then that employers be looking at putting in place to now to secure the future for when the next generation become the older generation? So my generation, I would say, so Gen Xers, and then you got the millennials. So it'd be a combination really for the older generation, and possibly working, you know, the millennials could possibly be working until they're 70. And I'm lucky I can retire at 67, although I'd like to retire when I'm 60. But you know, what do you think employers could put in place now to secure the future for those younger generations?
Oh, well, I think it may actually start a little bit earlier than actually what the employers can do. I think it needs to start back to where they're at school, probably for when they're in their high school or secondary school as it is now, whatever. Teach them a bit, teach the younger generation a bit more about saving, investing, mortgages, what you need to do. You don't have to retire at 67 or 70 or whatever it will be, if you can balance your money in a way that allows you to retire earlier. There's things like that I think is where it should start. And then I think that what employers should be looking at is helping those people, or finding a way in which they can help them to invest, or show them where's the best place to put it, what's the best thing for you to do.
And pensions.
And pensions as well, obviously pensions, which are a big thing. I think that employers need to support what they've learned in school and help them to take that into the workplace for that purpose, for investing and offering things for people to invest in, or where they can save their money, as well as pension schemes, which we really don't know what's happening with pension schemes going forward in the future, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
we really don't know because of the way things are. We know how difficult it is for young people, especially in London, to rent and to buy homes. Many of them stay at home until they're way into their, late 20s, early 30s now, to try and save money so that they can, move out. It's not easy at all. It's a really difficult time for them all. And I think that the only way we're going to make that easier is if they are taught what's the best thing for them to do. And then if employers can help them in that same way as well, what's the best thing to do, where to invest. Don't make it very, you can have this pension or that pension. You can put in this much or you can put in this much. Make it a bit more interesting, as in, if you do this, you can do this, and then we can take that and invest it for you there, and something like that is what I'm thinking along those lines.
I think that's really, really good. Yeah, no, I think that's really, really good. So with certain pensions, it does allow you to retire, or not so much retire, but draw out of your pension once you hit 56. So I'm fortunate to be in that position where I can, if I want to draw out of it. Although you do lose out in the long run because you're taking it earlier. But that's a really good good point, because I don't think schools are teaching the younger generations those qualities at the at the moment. So it would be good if they could invest that time to be able to help educate the younger generations. whilst in school about investment and pensions.
That's right. With the pensions that you can draw out earlier, I was in the civil service for a very long time before I started in this. So I had a civil service pension, which was great when I started. It was brilliant. And then after I'd been in the civil service for quite a while, it changed. So I got some of the old, what they call the classic, and then I got some of the new, but it still changed the amount in which I got. It wasn't half final salary as it would have been. I lost out quite a bit.
That's really unfortunate.
So the only other thing I did take it early because I thought I needed to cut my hours down. So for health issues, I had to cut my hours down at work. I didn't want to stop working completely, and I just wanted to cut my hours down. So what I did was cash it in early, the pension. And what I would say about that, although it sounds you lose out, the other thing to do is work out, if I take it now, what I will get. If I wait until I'm 60 or 65, what is the difference going to be? So am I going to lose out £500 or am I going to lose out £100 or £200 or £300? Is it worth going another 5 years for that amount of money?
You've got to weigh up the pros and cons.
So you have to weigh up the pros and cons, and you have to also look at what's best for you financially and for your health. And one thing I would always say as well is that no one takes it lightly when they have to work part-time. There's very few people that can say, oh, I'm just going to work part-time. Sometimes you have to sit there and you have to weigh up financially whether it's worth it or how can you manage and what you can do. No one does it very quickly. No one just says they're going to do it. You have to work out. And I think I took 2 years working out for myself whether I'd be able to work part-time, even though I knew my health was suffering because of it. So I had to make that choice. And in the end, it worked out okay. It did work out all right for me.
Oh, that's really, really good that it worked out for you. Because some people think it will work out for them and it doesn't. So I'm in that similar situation where I'm sitting here thinking, when do I retire? Do I do it in 3 years when I hit 60? Do I wait until I'm 66? What do I do? So that's a good way of thinking. I've never thought about that really. So I'm going to have to weigh up the pros and cons for that. Okay, so now what do you think we can do now to support baby boomers such as yourselves, millennials and Gen Z, all work together without there being the feeling of us and them? Because you do find that sometimes, there is that air of us and them within the workplace because, we're seen as that older generation. Oh, they're too slow. They can't get to grips with technology. They can't do this. And so how can we get around that, do you think?
Right. There's two things that I think, no matter how much things change going forward, there's two things that we should always have, which is respect for each other and manners and good manners. So we should always respect each other and we should have good manners, and that goes for the older generation to the young and the young to the old. We have to respect that. I think it's really important that us as older people respect the younger generation, and that it's going to be their future. It's not our future, it's going to be their future. So we have to make sure that we set things up good for them. And we have to accept that things that they bring to us or they bring up, it's about what they're going to be working in. We're not going to be here to see how it works. And if it goes wrong, it will change and it will improve and they will make things different. We have to make sure that we do that. And also they have, I think we need to make sure that trying to think of the right words for it now, that we share. We have to share knowledge. Definitely we have to share knowledge, and we have to listen to what they say and what they want.
I think as well as reverse mentoring, we pair up an older person with the younger person.
That's
to both sort of like exchange skills, experiences, and sort of like try and understand the generational differences, because there's a lot of difference in terminology and language used by the younger generation compared to what we are
Yeah.
used to and what we've been doing. So I just think if we can do some reverse mentoring, that would go a
That
long
would
way
go
to
really,
helping.
really well. I do like to learn from the youngsters at work that I work with. And I have gone from being the youngest in my team when I started in the civil service to the oldest in my team where I am now. So I've been both ends of the scale. And I remember as a youngster having older people kind of saying, well, what does she know? She don't understand that. How can she manage that team? How can she do that? I remember that. And I've always thought to myself, I'm never going to be that person. And I don't think I am that person, because I do like to work with the youngsters very much. I love to learn what they're learning. I like to see what they're, what they do. And I listen to them even when they're talking, and I just ask them, what does that mean? Because sometimes the language they use is something completely new to me. Having lots of nieces and nephews as well, I kind of learn from them. What does that mean? Oh, is that what it means now? Things like that I have to do, that I kind of pick up from them. And I think that they are, I think we have to also look at the way that they present. The way they are now is what the future is. So what they look like, whether they've got 20 tattoos, 700 piercings, whatever, what they've got, what we have to remember is that's the future. So that's what all of them are going to look like when they start working, know. So it has to be a way that it's got to be something that they feel comfortable working with. They have to feel comfortable working with that. They have to feel comfortable with people looking a certain way or being a certain way. So I think that's really important as well for them. And the other thing is, which I've forgotten what I was going to say, so I might come back to it in a minute.
Okay, no problem. Well, I think you're definitely right there. Appearance for individuals in the workplace has changed a great deal over the years. I mean, gone are the days where everybody's suited and booted, briefcase, the lot. Obviously, if you're in the city and you're in finance or hedge fund, anything like that, that's a whole different ball game. But your normal kind of run-of-the-mill roles, etc., then there's been a huge shift in terms of appearance, and dress code as well is another thing. So it's my son who works at Diversity, he's got tattoos all over his arms, and one of the first things I said to him is I shouldn't have, because we're a diverse job group. And I should be thinking like one of the younger generations. I mean, I have a couple of tattoos myself. So you're absolutely right in everything you're saying. The relaxed dress code that is now everybody's doing. And I think that's a great thing that's happened, because before it was you'd go to work in a suit and you'd be uncomfortable, and you'd come home, you'd have a shower, you'd get changed into your slobs or whatever you want to call them, your relaxed clothes, and that's where you would feel like you were your own self. That's whereas when you're in a suit and you're dressed in a certain way or you look a certain way, then you potentially feel that you can't actually be yourself, because appearance is everything really, or it used to be, whereas I think now it's more relaxed and more welcoming and open.
That's right. I do think that there are standards, and I think we all know what they are really. It's about being smart and casual. Smart casual is the dress code for most people now in most companies. And when I first started work, you couldn't wear jeans, you couldn't wear trainers, you had to be smart all the time. So it was like a shirt and a skirt and shirt, or skirt, and just about then women were allowed to wear trousers, just about, So it was things like that you had to be really really careful about. I mean, for myself, I've come across, let me think, it would have been in the 80s, back in the 80s when I was started work, and I used to have occasionally put my hair in braids, and at the time in the 80s, it was about braids with the little beads on the end of your hair, and I would do that, and I was pulled up about that. You can't have your hair like that. Well, why not?
It doesn't make any difference to how you can perform. It was tied back
most of the time, It was nothing to do with the work. It was just an appearance thing that they didn't like, And even in America now, there was a big case of where women of colour were told they had to straighten their hair, because they didn't like the afro or the
My word.
and that went through. That was about a year ago, I think, that went through, and it was like, no, it's not, it doesn't have to be. So there's lots of different things. The lady in New Zealand with the Maori tattoos on her face, a member of parliament, who was pulled up about that. Some things are cultural. You can't distinguish, you can't say that someone can't do something that's culturally theirs. You have to allow that. You have to allow for that. So, you know. And the other thing, the last thing I would say on this as well is that as the older generation as well, we have to remember that young people don't want to come to work and be mothered or looked after by their dad, because to them it's like when we say certain things or do, they might, you know, think, oh God, it's like mom or dad, or why can't we, you know, because actually we're their colleagues. So we have to remember that we're their colleagues. We're not their parents. If they come and ask you for advice, that's fine. If they talk to you, that's fine. But don't mother them.
No, I fully agree with that.
If you see what I mean, parent them. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Okay, so with many older workers over the age of 60 working part-time, what do you think employers can do to support things such as travel costs, work patterns, maintaining a good work-life balance, yet still supporting the business?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, there's quite a number. I think the figures I looked at was 40%, I think it is, 40% of people over 60. I think it's 40% of people between the age of 60 and 64 work part-time, and 66% of people over the age of 65 work part-time.
Wow.
So it's quite a high number in the older generation that do that. Business needs are very obvious that you need to make sure that the business can run well when people are working part-time or whatever. Travel costs, I know outside of London, they can be extremely high, because I know bus fares and things can be very high. Also, the fact that sometimes you don't get that many buses, you get one an hour or whatever. Yeah. So I know that outside of London, it can be very difficult. So I suppose in a way, you're looking at things like people being able to work more from home maybe, and coming into the office a little less when they're outside of London. In London, we get the 60 plus Oyster card. So anyone that's got that will understand it's the best thing that you get at 60, the 60 plus Oyster card. It starts at 9 o'clock. You can use it at 9 o'clock on the buses and from 9:30 on the trains. However, if you've got to be in work at 9 o'clock, you've still got to be paid. So it doesn't help you, as in the fact that you are still having to pay rush hour fares on a part-time salary. And that can add up to quite a lot of money. So again, it's about allowing maybe people to work from home, or if they're going into the office, let them go in after 9 o'clock. Let them start at 10 or 10:30 and work later in the evening, because they can use it in the evening to get home. So that way, that saves them that money. It's not that everybody is using it to commute, as it said in the paper a couple of weeks ago, because we can't use it until certain times anyway. If I if I was to leave home at 9, I wouldn't get into work until 10:30, 11:15.
Wow.
So I would have to, I can't leave home that late. I have to leave home earlier. So I have to pay the fares in the mornings when I go in. It's only the evenings that I get it. So I think something along the line of maybe a travel loan, perhaps, or
even just being able to claim it back in expenses somehow, or a percentage
something
of
like
it.
that. That's right. Yeah, because it isn't cheap. Travel isn't cheap anywhere in the country, no matter whether you're in a city or outside of a city. It's not cheap, and it can be very difficult for you to, to balance that with fares. Fares can be ridiculous.
Oh, that's astronomical.
Yeah, I think a monthly travel card for London for zones 1 to 6 is something like £470 a month.
Wow, that is absolutely shocking.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot, yeah.
I think it's £470.
And on the flip side of that, though, for the younger generations, I heard on the news this morning that they are looking, or MPs are wanting to be able, or somebody is wanting to look at giving free bus or travel fare for the under 22s to help them get to work and stuff like that. Again, because the young generations, they're on a different pay scheme to
That's
say
right,
an older generation. And especially if you're doing an apprenticeship or an internship or anything like that, then you're not going to be paid as much as somebody who's skilled and experienced and qualified to do certain roles. So
again, in London, for apprentices and some students, I can't remember them exactly, there is an Oyster card for them to travel as well.
Oh, fabulous.
So there is apprenticeship one, there is I can't remember what the other one is, student one, but I can't remember what it's for. And then children, obviously, they travel for free. So
they do.
But there is one that you can claim, and you can claim it once your course starts. So when you start your apprenticeship and you've got in your office, and then when the course starts, you can claim it then, and you get your
really good.
your Oyster apprenticeship travel card. And then there's the student one as well for
they
older
perhaps
students.
Should, like you say, do something to help the older generations wanting to go part-time, like you say. I know you get this the 60s Oyster card, but still there's got to be a little bit more that something could be done, just so that it keeps the older generation in the workplace, but not having to spend 50% of their
salary
pay to travel expenses.
Because, that's right.
It's like that age-old thing about mothers or parents going back to work and paying for childcare. Are they just going to work just to pay for the childcare because of how expensive it is? So I think there's got to be some kind of concession somewhere along the line to help out and improve things for people. Okay, so as an older worker, within 7 years of retirement, as you've mentioned to me, what would you like to see in place for yourselves? And it's the same question for those with more than 10 years. So I've got till my official retirement, I've got 8 years, I think it is, 8 or 9 years until I can officially retire, but I'm able to retire now and draw on my pension. So what would you like to see, for example, for someone that's close to retirement and those that have got a bit longer?
Okay, first of all, I would love to say everyone that's still here on the webinar, thank you. And this question, I think, would be a really great one if you could put some questions in the chat, answers or your opinions of that in the chat. And not just that, but anything else that we said, put something in the chat. It would be really good to see what you think, because at the end of the day, none of us are right. We're not all right. There's no right or wrong or right answer. So it'd be really great to get your opinions of that. So if you could put it in the chat, and then at least we can pick it up and have a look at that.
I agree.
For us,
that would be good.
Older people, what I'd like to see in place within the next 7 years of retirement. Do you know what? For me personally, I'm okay in the sense that I think I can see myself going, health allowing, touch wood, I can see myself working till I get to 67. I've not got any problem with doing it now. It was sort of like I knew I was going to have to do it, so I kind of prepared for that. But I think it's for those people who have got that little bit longer to go, and the youngsters, what do they want to see in place for them for their retirement? For me, it's about just being ready to retire, because I think that's a problem. It's like I'm looking forward to retiring, but how prepared am I to be not doing anything? So am I going to be not doing anything, or am I going to think about doing a bit of voluntary work? Probably yes, to do that. Would I still maybe find a little part-time job that I can do for 2 days a week or a day a week, or work for or at something like that? That's what I'm looking for myself, and those opportunities, I would like to see more opportunities for that for older people, so that when they do reach retirement age, or they've come to retirement age, that there's something for them to be doing. I know some people will have things like, I'm planning on going 10 cruises a year and I'm going on holiday. And great, that's fantastic if that's what you can do. But for other people, I think it would be nice for them to be able to say, well, I'm retired now, but this organisation offers this, so I'm going to try this, or I'll do that, or something there for me to do. And I think we do need to retire to leave that room for the younger generation to take those jobs, because we are here and we have got a lot, we are doing a lot of work. We're a lot of us in that generation that are still working, but there are younger people coming up behind us and maybe can't get into work as they would have liked to. And certain roles like retail work, when I was younger and I was at school and in college, I worked in retail, and it would be really great if rather than having the contract for people working in retail full time to go all the way through the week, give those students that opportunity still to work in the evenings, to work at weekends, to build up some skills, customer service skills and things as well, so that they've got those to bring forward for themselves, and again look at what they want to do with their careers right up until they retire. Or is it going to be their career, or is it they're going to change it? Are they going to change careers? Because when you're very young, you never know what you want to do 100%. You would want to, maybe do something else as you go through life. You don't have to stay in the civil service like I did forever and then just by chance get this opportunity. So you would really like to, I would really like to see, like to know what other people would like to see for themselves.
No, that's good.
For me, I know it's one thing. Yeah.
We have got some questions. So let's have a look. Oh, it's disappeared, that one has. Let me go to the Q&A then. So there was a question, but it's disappeared. So here it is. Do you have any thoughts on attracting Generation Alpha, who we know will be reaching employment age within the next 2 to 3 years?
Yes, they will be. Generation Alpha, I suppose, is the generation that are in school now and should be learning all those things that we said at the beginning about teaching them about investments and mortgages and savings and what to do, and tell them that you don't have to go to uni. Maybe you want to do an apprenticeship and build your skills like that. So it's not about telling them you need to choose now what you want to do. It's about giving ideas for them to be able to make decisions and help them make those decisions.
I agree.
And help them to understand that if you want to start a job doing A now, it doesn't mean you have to do A for the rest of your life. You could move on and do B. So it's about giving them choices and letting them know what's available to them to move forward in the workforce.
No, I agree, and then encouraging them to try and experience as many different things, because you don't know whether they're going, if you're going to like something. That was a really good question, Heather. Thank you for that. So Rebecca McNulty has said, where in RHP or diversity jobs have you seen generationally inclusive practice move the dial on engagement, retention or performance, and what was the change and how do you measure that? So over to you. I'll let you answer this.
Say that again. Sorry.
So where in RHP have you seen generational inclusive practice move the dial on engagement, retention or performance, and what was the change and how do you measure it?
In RHP, personally, I think that they're very good at having the whole generational people working together, of all ages and of all generations, and learning from each other. The L&D team is really, really good. They give a lot of information and they support people with things that they want to do, regardless of their age. So if I suddenly decided tomorrow and I said, actually, I'd like to do the next CIPD course, level 4 or level 5, then I would be able to look at being able to do that. So I think with RHP, the way things are is that it doesn't matter what age you are, there's always scope for you to develop and to grow within it. And And you will be supported if you want to do it. Your manager will support you, the L&D team will support you, and the people team will support you to what is, if it's going to help you to move on. There's lots of movement. You can look at moving on to a different job within the organisation to take you up to the next level. And your performance, you will always know what your performance is, because we're always set goals to reach those goals and to meet them. So I would say that I see it every day, Rebecca, within RHP. I do see all those things every day, and in my role as recruitment, I see it regularly because I'm doing the recruitment. So I see the people that are moving on. I see the generations that we employ in the different roles and why we employ them, because sometimes it's not necessarily they've got the skills, it's that they've got those behaviors, and the way they are is something that you can see in them. You can see something in them that is worth taking them forward and taking a risk, if you like, on them and seeing how they develop.
Yep, so I can say a similar sort of thing for diversity. My background is in IT, and I'd never worked in recruitment or job boards or anything like that. And as at the point of joining Diversity Jobs Group, I had literally just turned 56, and that was I would say a big milestone for me in terms of being employed by a company that an industry that I had never worked in before, and given the right training and autonomy really to learn and develop. So I would be the second oldest person within the business. The rest of them range in their 40s, their 30s and their 20s. So we've got quite a wide range, age group range there. So, and we all kind of bounce off each other, and we all have our different ideas and ways of doing things. So that's a really good question. Thank you for that, Rebecca. She's also requested. Sorry.
I was going to say, and also in my team, I am the oldest in the team, but the next person down, there's a 16-year age gap. So between me and the next person down, that's 16 years. And then even between who was the youngest at 30 to the next one down, there's 7 years. So the age gap is very spread, but we all work really well together.
It's a nice balance.
And it is very diverse, Yeah,
fantastic. So Rebecca's asked another question. If your leadership team could do one thing to improve cross-generational working within the business, what one thing would you suggest to them, and why?
Cross-generational, trying to think. I think they need to be a bit more open-minded about the generations, if that makes sense. Be a bit more open-minded. Don't always think that this person who has been here for the last 10 years is the best person for the job, where it could be this person that's only been here for 2 years that might be the best person. I think it's looking at the skills in both of the groups of people, and looking at who you feel is really going to be able to do the very best job. I'm not saying that they don't do it, but I think it's possibly somewhere that we could look at a bit more.
No, I agree. And you can't just stigmatize somebody because of their age. You have to look at what their capabilities are rather than, because like you say, somebody who's in their 20s who you might not have as much life experience as someone, say, in their 50s or 60s, but they have got a good point of view. They've got a good understanding. They're quite capable of doing that particular role. So I think it is a case of not stigmatizing, not being judgmental or being biased because you think, oh, well, that person's 30 years older than that person, so therefore they're going to be able to do the job better, because that's not necessarily true. So and we've got to give the younger generations as much help and as much opportunity, like you say, as possible, because they are the future. you know,
That's right.
we're sort of like coming to the sort of like the
Yeah, to the end
backbenches
of
of
our
everything,
yeah,
and
that's right.
the young
Yeah,
generations are leading the future, and I
that's
think they're
right.
doing a great job so far in
Yeah,
terms of
I
how
agree.
the working and the work-life balance
Yeah,
has changed over the
yeah,
last 5 years,
yeah,
really.
yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
can't really say it was much before
yeah.
that, but over the
No, it
last
was
5 years,
definitely
it's
last 5.
really
Yeah,
changed. So,
yeah,
and I think that is purely down
yeah.
to the younger generation, because
Yes,
it's
I agree.
certainly not
That's
the
right.
older generation,
Yeah,
because we're programmed a different way, we've
yeah,
worked a different way for many years, so
yeah,
therefore we think that's how it has to be.
yeah.
So I welcome the younger
Absolutely.
generation with open arms to come up with
100%.
some new ideas, new
Yeah,
incentives, new thought processes, and how things can be done, because they could teach us a thing or two.
definitely. And I think it's something that I love about working there is my team are so good at what they do, and I love learning from them. And I think if anyone that's a pain, it's probably me, because I'm constantly always asking, what's that do? How do you do that then? Show me how you do this. Show me how you do that. But I like that because I like to learn. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to stand around for the next 7 years asking everyone else to do something for me when I can learn it myself, or try
No,
to learn it myself.
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, so I know I've got a few other suggestions, but I'm mindful of
Yeah,
everybody's time.
that's
We've
all
been
right.
on for 45 minutes now. So what I'll probably do then, there will be a recording of this webinar, which will be put on social media and on our YouTube channel. But what I think
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably do is create a document just to highlight what was mentioned in
Yeah.
today's webinar, and then add some additional suggestions, you know, as Rebecca said about the reverse mentoring suggestion. She liked that.
Yeah, I
So I've
love
got some
that.
other suggestions as well that I think I'd like to put in there with
Yeah.
for each of your questions. So I'll put something together, and hopefully we can attach that as well to the social media post. But I would like to thank everybody who stayed and joined today's webinar. I really do appreciate it. And I would like to thank you, Donna, for your time and your valuable
Thank
input
you.
today. So I hope that everybody's taken away one clear message out of today's webinar, is that workplaces are their strongest when every generation is valued, heard, and empowered to contribute, whether it's the baby boomers sharing decades of experience, millennials driving collaboration, or Gen Z bringing a fresh perspective and digital fluency. The magic happens when we break down the barriers for each other. The future of work is not just one generation. One generation replacing another. It's about generations
Moving
working
on.
side
Yeah,
by
and
side
moving
and
up. Yeah,
building each
yeah.
other's strengths. So I really hope that you found today's webinar valuable, and we really do appreciate you joining us today. But as I say, the recording will be ready and published on social media and on YouTube, and I will add a few other bits and pieces from research that I have done. But I would like to thank everybody this morning for your time, and Donna especially, and you know, I hope you all have a lovely day. But if you do have any other further questions, then do drop us a message in the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to get back to you with some ideas and answers. But thank you all so much. We really appreciated you being here.
Thank you.
Have a lovely day, Donna. Have a lovely day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you so much for your time.
Lovely. Thank you. Take care now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.